This is the Authentic Change Podcast, and I am Mike Horne. Authenticity reflects what we want from each other and our organizations: open communication, trust, community, fun, and opportunity. I want to help you to do your best in your personal and professional relationships. This podcast delivers expertise, insights, and approaches on authentic leadership, to live your purpose, to lead from your values, to establish connected relationships, to steward people and culture change, to build and sustain prosperity, and to open doors and possibilities. This podcast will assist you in paving the way forward to personal, team, and organizational prosperity. Welcome to another episode of the Authentic Change Podcast with Mike Horne. I am beyond delighted today to welcome as our guest Kasey Jones, the founder of, get this everyone, it is the best brand name I think I've ever associated with a person, and that is A Better Jones, abetterjones.com. But that's not to overshadow or foreshadow the person behind that, and that is Kasey Jones, who's an expert authority coach, growth strategist, and as she describes herself, a personal hype woman. I am delighted to hear more about her story, how it relates to the topics that are important to all of us, and I'm sure one that has, in the realms that Kasey works in, gets challenged. And I'm looking so forward to this interview. So welcome, Kasey, founder of abetterjones.com. And could you just say a few words about yourself, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mike. That was quite the intro. And I will in a moment also have to share where the business name comes from, because most people get it wrong. So I'm a thought leadership and growth coach, predominantly to entrepreneurs, but lots of business leaders as well. And really, I'm just super passionate about growth of all kinds. How do we become more evolved, elevated versions of ourselves? How do we grow more evolved and elevated businesses, lead better lives, have more fun, create deeper connection, all the rest.
And those are so many of the concepts that are associated with authenticity and authentic leadership. How do we leave the world a better place? How do we touch the relationships that we have with one another?
Yeah.
How do we do that in a way that helps us to lead better lives? When I was going through one coaching program, the instructor, he's a globally recognized expert. I was lucky to study with him for a while, but he said that he thought the purpose of coaching was to eliminate just a little bit of suffering. And, of course I understand that. And I've come to believe, though, that it's more about helping happiness to grow.
Oh,
Uh,
I'm with you.
Where are you on that? Yeah.
I think I'm with you on that. And because here's the deal, like, I don't mean to get too Buddhist on you, but life is suffering. Okay. Life is freaking hard. And the idea that we could eliminate it, I mean, maybe we could, but I think when we eliminate it, it's by numbing ourselves. It's by lessening our connection and our emotions and our feeling. And I agree with you. It is more about enhancing the beauty, enhancing the joy, the feeling things deeper that is really authentic. And I think it's when you focus on lessening the suffering, the byproduct is kind of lessening just a little bit of everything. And I don't think that that's authentic.
Right. That's a great perspective. And I think that's one I resonate with as well. And when I take that perspective, it also opens me up to the possibility to, I think, see life more abundantly and more fully. Though I'm often reminded, one of the best-selling books of all time, The Road Less Traveled, opens with the sentence, "Life is difficult." But anyway, one of the things that I was attracted to on your abetterjones.com website on the about page
Yeah.
was the statement. And I thought it would give our audience a lot of opportunity for the learning mill, the learning grist. And here's what I read. And I don't know if this is up to date or, when it was or if it's current, but here's what it says. I've learned to harness my unusual story and my personal triumphs to build a more authentic, impactful, and inspiring personal brand that connects with my audience and builds my business. And
Yeah.
I was just curious about what does it mean to build a more authentic, inspiring personal brand? It's a question so many in the audience struggle.
Yeah. And look, what I think is very interesting is what I notice in my industry. And yes, that is totally up to date. And that is a very good explanation of what it is that I do. Um, what I think is very interesting in business, and particularly when we're talking about this topic of personal branding, um, is this idea that when we apply intention, like if we're strategic about it, that somehow it makes it less authentic. And I think the opposite is true. Yes, you can be overly deliberate, overly strategic, and get disconnected from who you really are. But I actually think that when we do the work to peel back the layers and really decide and understand who we really are, who we are really trying to become, the type of impact we are trying to have, the way we are trying to connect, the feeling we want to give to other people, that to me is more authentic than leaving it all to chance and doing everything sort of willy-nilly and shooting from the hip. I know that when I have intention about how I show up in the world and the way that I connect with others, I am able to show a more true version of me than when I'm in a rush, underslept, haven't really thought about it, and I'm showing up kind of at the last minute and just throwing, stuff at the wall. So yeah, this is what I work on with people is how do you intentionally create a personal brand that is authentic and that is an authentic representation of both who you are and the kind of impact that you want to create in the world.
That's great. And I think, the little bit of Gestalt psychology that I understand, one of the foundational concepts, along with figure and ground, is the idea of awareness.
Yeah.
And I wonder but awareness and intention seem like related topics, but different topics too. What do you think about that?
You're getting into some good stuff. And um, I think that, yes, I think they're related. I think it's really hard to have very clear intentions if you aren't self-aware. So the other thing you'll hear me say all the time. So yes, I'm a coach to entrepreneurs. I focus on kind of personal branding and business growth, blah, blah, blah. But you and I am sure know that the stuff that holds us back in business is the stuff that holds us back in our personal life. And so I wind up doing a lot of life coaching and a lot of this kind of personal development, personal discovery work with clients as well. And what I talk about all the time is that the sort of secret formula to growth is it's simpler than we think it is. It doesn't mean it's easy, but it's simpler. And it's self-awareness plus action equals kind of growth or evolution. And the thing I think about all the time is oftentimes we have one without the other. So self-awareness without action is an incredibly frustrating and sometimes sort of depressing experience.
Mm-hmm.
You know where the problem lies, but you just aren't making any progress. And it can be incredibly difficult to deal with. On the flip side, and this was me, I shouldn't still is some plenty of times, is, and I think it's more common, is action without self-awareness. And so you're doing tons of stuff, but you're going in a direction that actually isn't aligned with what you want and isn't really aligned with who you are and, you know, the vision that you have for the kind of life and business that you want to build and all this other stuff. And I think that is when you have intention without awareness, that's what happens. You can have great ideas, but they're sending you in the wrong direction.
Right. Is that branding or is that directing the significance of your life? Or are they one and the same, sort of?
I think they can be one and the same. So, one of the things that I think is really interesting about the whole personal branding exercise is, you know, you can't build a personal brand, at least not a good one, and at least not an authentic one, without really understanding who you are and what your message is, what you want to say, what you want to be known for. And so what's fascinating is when people start to go through this personal branding kind of work, they wind up getting way clearer on what that vision even is, on who they are, on what they stand for. Also, part of it is putting yourself out there, which is scary. So they inevitably wind up becoming much more confident in that vision and in who they are and what they stand for. And so it's this journey that, yeah, okay, great, more people will know you for what you do, but it's also, you know, you more for what you want to be known for, because you have to make these kind of tough decisions and put them to the test in a certain way.
Right. And so much goes on with that. One of my
Yeah.
colleagues, Becky Robinson, says, famous to a few, right? You think about your audience, and this branding message um, does relate directly to the concept of authenticity. When I think about authenticity, I think about congruency. Do my words and my actions match? And even
Yeah.
better yet, you know, do the ways I think, my actions and words match? That's congruency. And when people have that in balance, they're generally happy.
Yeah.
And, you know, in my world, the social science research is clear that we enjoy working with happy people. So the privilege, the gift that you bring to people in this personal branding, in this development, is the privilege of telling their story. And maybe
Yeah.
that's how Carl Jung would say it,
Yeah.
is that the greatest gift of a lifetime, the greatest privilege of a lifetime, is becoming the person you are.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's it exactly. And I think there's something about, I think in life in general, I think we leave far too many things to chance. Right. So, and I think about this all the time when it comes to happiness. I love giving the book, the happiness advantage, to skeptics. So people that think that positive psychology is kind of BS, or that, you know, happiness isn't a choice. It's like a thing that occurs to you. It happens to you. And I always give them the book, The Happiness Advantage. And almost always they come back to me 2 weeks later and are like, oh, okay, I'm kind of becoming a believer. And the whole idea here is like, we are kind of taught that all of the sort of best things in life, falling in love, having good relationships, having fun, being happy, that is left to chance, that it's left to circumstance. And I am a big believer that we have far more control over the life that we live and the kind of feelings that we have and the experiences we create than we are taught when we are children.
Oh yeah, I think one of the strongest, or I don't want to use the word strong, but you know, a great affirmation is, um, you are at the helm, you are the captain
Mm,
of your ship, right? However
yeah,
you want to think about that, but it does then allow you the freedom to direct the significance of your life. I mean, that's how I would frame that. So how does that become real for people in a discovery process with you? There's so many people who want to help others to create brands
yeah.
and
So I think what winds up happening first is so any anytime I work with a client, we always start with the mindset stuff first, right? It's the like, first off, why do you care? Why do you want to be known for what you do? And let's be clear, I work with a very particular kind of person, and I work with those that I refer to as impact driven, right? Where, yeah, we all want to make decent money, but they care more about making a difference in their world. They care more about leading a life that feels like it matters in some way than anything else. And so, you know, before we do any of this work, we've got to connect with why. Why does it matter to us? And then it's starting to develop the practices that get us to a place where we can really own that we have a message that matters. And sometimes that means, well, I shouldn't even say sometimes, always. That means us kind of diving into what's the stuff that holds us back from owning that? What are the lessons or the behaviors that we've been taught about you know, why we need to play small, why we can't take up space, why we don't deserve attention, why we put others first always. And so it winds up being, before we even get to the how do you create content on social media, which is what most people think personal branding is really about, we got to get to the like, why does this work matter? And what is so freaking hard about it?
Yes, so much in there. I often talk about the gifts that's as that an organizational consultant brings, and
Mhm.
it all borrows from some work of my colleague Daria Funches. But the first thing is some hope. That
Yeah.
what makes a difference is that you can bring some hope to a situation that, to many people, at least, for the folks with whom I'm coaching, who are usually involved in some transition, whether it's
Yeah.
a scaling transition, inattentiveness to their environment,
Mhm.
or some goal-directed activity that they have.
Yeah.
I mean, these really all require some redirecting of
Yeah.
energies that have made them successful in the past. And how, we hold on to those things without letting
Oh
them
yeah.
go.
Well, and it's also, I like the word redirecting, because there's also something of like, look, and I had a conversation with a client about this yesterday. She said, we were talking about why she's so stressed, and she's like, well, I'm spread so thin, I'm just so busy and all this stuff. And then we started talking about it. It was like, well, okay, you need to start saying no to more things. And she was like, Kasey, how I got to where I am in this business is because I said yes to absolutely everything. I can't change that now. And I was like, hold on. And it's this idea, right? And I'm sure when you're talking to people in transition, it's what got you here ain't going to get you there.
Sure.
And it's so challenging sometimes to shift that perspective of, instead of making decisions based on who we were, how do we make decisions based on who we are going to become?
Yeah. And it's usually, as someone has observed, that it's not so much that we're afraid of a new order or to embrace the future,
Mhm.
or so fearful of embracing a new future, or that we can't let go of the past. It's what happens in the middle that gets us in trouble, right? And that's the time, I think, during these moments, or maybe even a choice to engage in the long term uh,
Yeah.
implementation of becoming, what I say is becoming more of who you are,
Yeah.
bringing your best to every
Yeah.
situation.
Well, what's interesting about it, right, is this idea that, like, we created our entire world, our relationships, the systems that support us, our practices, our habits, our routines, like literally everything based on who we used to be. And so when we start to change, and I agree with you, it's when we start to become who closer to who we really are. And I feel like this is a never ending process. But as we start to make those changes, what inevitably happens is we start breaking the systems and the relationships and the habits and the routines and all the things that we built when we were someone else. And what happens is that things start to break and we start to think, oh no, all these changes I'm making, everything's breaking. This is clearly a sign that I'm doing the wrong thing. When instead it's like, oh yes, I am kind of stirring shit up and I am breaking things to make room for this new life and this new world and these new relationships and systems that I'm building. And it's time to double down. But oftentimes when we're new to this game, things start to break and you're like, oh, oops, I'm going to go back to how things were. I don't like all of this rocking the boat. I don't like annoying all the people in my life. This is too uncomfortable. I'll just slink back to who I was or where I was.
I think it's such a great observation, Kasey. It's not the act of taking things away, which is often, people say, well, if I just do less of this, and it's about making room for more.
Yeah.
And, not seeing this as something you do on the side.
Yeah.
Or, so it's a really great framework for thinking about enlarging the pie rather than thinking about dividing the pie.
Yeah. And I like the way you put that, right? Because I think we all know that one of the most challenging parts of all of this stuff we are talking about is the whole scarcity mindset. And when you have been operating from a place of scarcity and kind of scrambling to get through and to sort of muddle through life, which is always what happens when you're not when you're not showing up and operating as your most sort of empowered and honest and authentic and aligned self. It can feel like giving one thing up means you will never get it back and you're going to lose everything. It's all going to come falling apart. And instead, to your point, it's making room for something bigger and something better. But it is a scary leap to take for sure.
And Kasey, I think people often come to me and they don't know where to start.
Yeah.
And they've got lists, right?
Yeah.
I feel a sense of betrayal. I feel a sense of anxiety. Is talking with someone today. I mean, challenged in so many ways. And where do you help people to start?
So it always depends a little bit on who the person is, but usually my recommendation is when things feel really overwhelming, we got to slow down in order to speed back up again. And so can we take a step back? So when we feel overwhelmed, it's usually when we are hyper focused on all the tiny little things that need doing. And oftentimes when we zoom out for a moment, we realize that like 30% of those tiny things are leading us in a direction we don't even want to go in.
Right.
We don't even want to do those things. They don't even serve us. So if we can slow down and take a pause, take a big, deep breath and zoom out for a moment and get a better understanding of what is the big picture. And I'll be honest, usually when we're in that space and we try to look at the big picture is super hazy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But you know what? We can get a rough outline here or there. We can see a blurry thing in the distance that seems sort of familiar, and we can start to slowly get our hands on things. But it can help us start to recognize that we're doing a bunch of things that are not getting us closer to that, and we don't need to be doing, and aren't aligned with what we want to be doing. And we can actually take a bunch of things off our plate instead of simply this never-ending cycle of adding. It's
really the development of perspective, isn't it? I mean, that is
a far more eloquent way of putting it. Yeah.
Oh, no. Just, the same concepts, just framing. And
Yeah.
so it's a really wonderful interview for our audience with you on this. If you were to, we just talked about first steps and where does someone start.
Yeah.
Um, if members of our audience wanted to be in touch with you, how would they connect with you? How would they be in touch with you?
Yeah. So as you've mentioned, abetterjones.com is a great place to go. But I am at a Better Jones on absolutely every social media platform. So everything from LinkedIn, Instagram, even TikTok. And you can always come and find me. I'm always up for a conversation just to kick things off.
Oh, that's great. And I mean, who wouldn't want a conversation with Kasey Jones? It seems to me that it could be the beginning of or a launch pad for great discovery, capturing your potential, igniting a future, and really, I think, enjoying some of the benefits of authenticity, which is prosperity. So,
Mm.
Kasey, once again, I just so much like to thank you for being
Thank
a
you, Mike.
guest. And for the audience, until the next episode of Authentic Change with Mike Horne, be well. Thanks for listening, and I hope you'll subscribe today and tell a friend about our show. If you're looking for hands-on help to increase your success through authentic change, or have a question you'd like to hear me answer here, please email me at mike-horne, HORNE.com.